Hey, what's going on, everyone? Axel here. If you haven't seen my videos before, I'm a long-term DDO player. I've been playing DDO since about 2008, 2009, and I've been making DDO content on YouTube since about 2014. But I wanted to make this video just to give a long-term DDO player's reaction to Josh Strife Hayes' video. So Josh Strife Hayes released this video on DDO, about 6 months ago, 7 months ago. It was the biggest video on YouTube for DDO in a very long time. It's over 1 million views now, I believe. But I wanted to give some context and reaction from a long-term player. I think overall his video is really good, but there are some things I want to give some context to and also just comment on. But if you want to watch his whole video, you should. It's awesome. I'm going to link it below in the description. Also below in the description is links to all my stuff on my link tree if you want to check me out on Twitch, my Discord, social media, things like that. All right, let's go ahead and get started. And oh, by the way, I'm not going to play literally the whole video. I'm going to clip things. If I don't have anything of importance to say in a certain segment, I will clip that out and just leave in my relevant comments. So I would recommend, if you haven't seen this video, go to the link below in the description and go watch the whole thing over on Josh Strife Hayes' channel. But here we go.
So maybe I should swallow my pride, click the button, read the new player guide. I mean, if I don't, I have only myself to blame, right? The offer was there, so you know what? I'll take it. I'll trust you, game. I'm ready to read. Teach me your ways. Make me the best new player you can make me. So I click that link. Stunning. Just an absolutely stunning start. The new player guide link does not work.
All right. So it's really unfortunate, the timing. So when SSG in 2023, they redid their website, and there was a process where a lot of links were broken. So it's really unfortunate that Josh Strife Hayes actually made this video right during that time, and he ran into a broken link. Not to justify it, still shouldn't be there. I mean, Josh is right that it's really ridiculous the new player guide link was broken, but it's kind of understandable in that SSG was redoing their website at the time. Hopefully they've fixed this link going forward.
Dungeons & Dragons Online showed me broken hyperlinks, tooltips for items just not showing up, the wrong map icons flashing for quests, server lag, more server lag, extreme server lag, overwhelming build quantity, quests that can only be finished with cash shop items, and many copy-pasted hallways filled with many identical boxes.
Okay, so let's get into some of that. Yeah, I mean, DDO is known for its bugs. Yeah, true. There are a lot of bugs in DDO. It's, I think, a result of them having a pretty small dev team over at Standing Stone Games, and this game just being so huge, frankly, too big for the development team that currently runs it. As far as the cash shop only quest, he's right, and that's a bit of a... I don't know how I feel about that one. I kind of understand both sides of it. So DDO is a free-to-play game, and the quest he's talking about is in Korthos, the starter area, and it's the only quest in the game that does this, that points you towards the store. But, as a free-to-play game, they want to show you how to use the in-game store, which is the whole point of that quest. And yes, it does kind of break immersion, but at the same time, it is a free-to-play game, and the only reason this game can survive and actually continue to exist is if people, buy stuff from the store and spend money. So it's kind of fair also for them to show you how to use it in-game somehow. I mean, maybe you could say, oh, instead of having it be a quest, you could have like an NPC or a pop-up or something, and that, maybe that's a good argument, and that there's merit to that. Perhaps maybe that's a change they could make, but nonetheless, at least I just wanted to provide context in that is the only quest in the game that does that. It's not like the game is littered with quests that point you towards the store. Just to clarify, that quest is literally just take one thing, get it from the store, and bring it to another person. It's not something that's common in this game at all.
Actually interested about this one. Unfortunately, there are some early warning signs. Bad design, which makes me think, oh, this is gonna lack so much polish and be so rough around the edges. Like how the user agreement box has a horizontal scroll bar despite not needing it, and
yeah, the thing about the horizontal scroll bar, I agree. There's a lot of little things in DDO that are just don't quite make sense or are not quite polished. And last I checked, that horizontal scroll bar was still there.
Now, if you've played Lord of the Rings Online, you can't play this. Right, this is actually a major issue and requires some explaining. This is one of the most baffling roadblocks of database design I've ever seen. I tried to sign up for Dungeons & Dragons Online and it says that email is already in use, and that's kind of correct. It is in use for Lord of the Rings Online. You see, Dungeons & Dragons Online is currently produced by Standing Stone Games, and they also produce Lord of the Rings Online. And when you sign up for either of these games, you need a general Standing Stone game account, and then an account for the specific game you want to play. But you cannot use the same email for both games.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. He's 100% right here. And this needs to be changed. It's obviously some kind of technical thing. SSG took the game over from Turbine, and I don't know why this is a thing, but it is a thing, and they need to change it.
This issue has been known about for years and is pasted all over Reddit, the DDO forums, and the Steam page. Please fix this, because this is mind-numbingly dumb. So new email used. Launching the game throws you straight into a full-screen cutscene with no subtitles, which irks me because having subtitles on by default helps people who play with sound low or are hard of hearing. The intro movie itself is the finest CGI mid-2000s can buy, showing us a robot and his party raiding a dungeon. Classic fantasy stuff, but of course even launching an intro movie is something that Dungeons & Dragons Online manages to get wrong. I showed you the full-screen replayed movie as I found in the options. What it actually looks like when you launch is this. For some reason they only use a quarter of the screen and you have to change the resolution manually. And now on to...
Yeah, I don't know why it does that. Probably just an unpolished thing, considering this is a game from 2006. They probably just haven't gone back and updated that part of the video for newer modern resolutions.
Character creation. You've got 4 styles of character: melee-focused, mage-focused, special, which is more specific gameplay styles like support, and iconic, which are high-level pre-built characters you can start as to save some time. But
well, okay, one thing, they are not pre-built. It gives you a forced first level of a class. So like, for example, he's showing here, this is Shotter Kai. The first level is a rogue. It's not pre-built, but it does start at level 15. As of this video, the cap is 32.
And one of the game's greatest strengths and its greatest weaknesses is just how many builds are possible and viable. And the best...
Yeah, and I want to emphasize that. I mean, DDO, what it's known for, if you're someone who's not, really has not played the game much, it has a ridiculous amount of character customization depth between its classes.
So while Dungeons & Dragons Online can be played entirely solo, teaming up is the best way to balance the weaknesses of your build, and your build doesn't have to be permanent. So we'll look at the reincarnation.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that this game is extremely playable solo. Certainly some classes are better than others, but the game, with a few exceptions, there are a few quests where you really, well, you might be able to solo it, but not without a lot of cheese. Almost every quest in the game is soloable.
System later. In another lovely touch, each class has a solo viability tag. Now, I can't find the seduce bartender skill in the bard list, so plan A is out the window. On to plan B. A dragonborn truthbringer paladin.
Okay,
and
so
we
let's
start
go
the
back
game
a bit
washed
here.
Up on a bringer paladin viability.
So as a new player, he talks about this viability thing here where it says solo ability. Ignore that. That is completely wrong. It's just not. Like, for example, solo ability, it'll say challenging, I believe, for a sorcerer, even though sorcerer is like one of the best solo classes, I would say, in the game. Also, he gets into the pre-made paths here, and one thing I'll emphasize to any new players that might be watching this. So when you start this game, for example, he picks sorcerer here, so you get 4 different options: Arcane Cannon, the Dynamic Can, Voice of Power, and Customize. These are pre-made paths that basically select all your level ups for you, like your classes and things. The whole point of this is just to get new players into the game quickly, and that's fine, but they are extremely weak and outdated. If you want a strong build, particularly one that's going to be viable on, really any difficulties like Elite and higher, you'll want to click Customize and make your own build. If you want a build, go to the DDO.com forums. There's a lot of builds over there. I'll put a link below in the description. If you're a new player, you want to look at some builds, I'll link those below. But you really want to customize in all situations in DDO, unless you literally just want to try out the game for an evening and want to get into the game fast. Then maybe try the pre-made paths.
A dragonborn truthbringer paladin, and we start.
So unfortunately, he picked one of the pre-made paths, which is going to make his character worse. You can still, it's not like if you have a pre-made path that's like completely unplayable. It's just you're probably going to want to stick to, say, like normal difficulty. If you want to go with the higher difficulties, you don't want to use a pre-made path build.
6. We chat to this rogue, he says follow him, and some little tooltip pops up on the right hand side. We get given a sword and told to open the inventory, and the inventory is minute. This is an issue with running older games on modern high resolution monitors. You can just lean closer and squint. I try to find the upscale UI slider, but the only scale slider is for the text above NPCs and objects' heads. You cannot change the scale of this UI. Please make that possible, because it is tiny. But it's
Okay, so UI scaling. This is a very well-known issue that a lot of players are asking for. The executive producer of the game has commented on this, and the plan from them is they want to do it. The plan is to do it. They just haven't done it yet. But they're very aware of this issue, and they need to fix the UI to scale. One of the problems with the scaling UI is a lot of the all the icons in the game are fixed images, so they can't scale them without redoing every icon in the game, which is one of the biggest issues with them scaling up. It's just they have a small dev team, and to scale up everything, instead of having it as fixed images, means redoing all that artwork, which is a lot of man hours for them. So that's really the main hurdle right now. A small dev team and implementing scaling UI would be a ton of work.
Choose your difficulty: solo, easy, medium, hard, or Reaper. And each dungeon has these options, and you unlock harder modes by completing the previous, meaning you can just grind dungeons.
Okay, it's worth noting that
anti-death spell.
Okay, it's worth noting that if you are a VIP, you can unlock any dungeon difficulty whenever. Also, once you get past heroic levels, so that's past the 20th level, when you get into epics and legendaries, you can unlock, no matter if you're free to play, premium, VIP, whatever, you can unlock any difficulty anytime you want. Another thing you can do is if you get involved in the reincarnation system, after you do your first heroic reincarnation, which means getting to level 20 and going back to level 1 in exchange for some additional permanent character power, you can, on your second life, you can unlock hard and normal. And if you do a third life, you can unlock every difficulty in the game whenever. So there is a way to progress and unlock that for on a character by character basis, or you can unlock any difficulty selection at any time by just going to VIP, just subbing to VIP.
After we've killed all the enemies, we need a key for this door, and that means swimming. Swimming is pretty easy to control, and your extremely limited breath meter means you're never underwater for long, and if your breath runs out, you just slowly lose health. But because this is a Dungeons & Dragons game, there is of course a potion or spell of water breathing available in the future.
Okay, it's worth noting that there is not very many long swims in DDO's quests, very few. There is a water breathing spell for swims. You can also later get an underwater action item, which you just, when you equip that item, you don't have to worry about breathing. You can breathe underwater, so you don't have to worry about your breath bar anymore. So it's a very, very minor part of DDO.
We grab the key, and the voice acting between the party is okay-ish. The vast majority of voice acting in this game is uncredited, but interesting touch, Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, the original creators of Dungeons & Dragons, actually both supplied voice work for a later adventure, which is quite cool. Find out for...
Also, it's worth noting Cindy Robinson and other celebrities like Will Wheaton have also done voice work for DDO.
But depth and freedom often comes at the cost of confusion and intimidation, and this is definitely true for brand new players.
Yeah, so DDO, as I mentioned before, it's a very complicated game, and while having a pen and paper background will help you some, it's not gonna teach you how to play DDO. If you try to build your D&D character exactly as you did in pen and paper in a DDO, odds are it won't turn out very well. They are very different inherently, even though obviously DDO is very, very, very much influenced by pen and paper D&D 3.5, as he points out here. So even though that's the case, there are so many player resources. So the DDO Wiki, ddowiki.com, is basically your manual for DDO, and it has an ocean of knowledge in there, so you can learn about whatever you want. There's tons of creators in the community, like myself, like other players, who put together video guides. There's just an ocean of knowledge really out there if you want to learn more about DDO. And it's a very, very passionate community. So it's made up of a lot of veterans who've been playing the game for a very long time. And it's a community that's very much willing to help teach you if you want to learn. So even though, yes, it's a big learning curve, you have a lot of tools through the community to help you out along the way.
The problem with DDO is not how deep it is, because depth and customization within a game is great. The problem is it's a gaping chasm of depth with no easy route to descend into. Instead of having an easily accessible walkway spiraling into the murky depth that new players can gently stroll down at their own pace, or abseiling ropes that experienced MMO players can clip into and leap down in stages, it just throws you into the gaping maw of potential and kind of hopes you figure it out before you hit the bottom and die. But
he's right in that in-game, you don't have enough resources available to really teach you vital things you need to know. And fortunately, this is where the community has been able to step in. Regardless, Josh has a good point here. There should be more things in-game to help teach players and guide them along the way. I even wonder if they can just implement the DDO Wiki into the game at some point, because it's basically the default manual for the game at this point.
way. So with the game focused on adventure zones and dungeons, it's a very journey-focused experience. The endgame does exist with high-level content, but this is not the focus. Indeed, the expansion...
I disagree with that. I mean, there is a pretty huge in-game in DDO. There's a dozen plus relevant in-game raids who have the Reaper enhancement system. You can also, there's a lot of optimization when it comes to in-game gearing. So I would disagree with them here. I mean, certainly, I would say the community is more split on what the in-game is, because you kind of have the community that sees reincarnation as the in-game and is all the time is doing reincarnations, and to them that is the point of DDO. That's basically the end game, to go back to the beginning and do it all over again. But there is a big portion of the community that is actually end game focused. You know, like myself, I run raids in DDO regularly. There's a lot of players who run raids all the time. Good raiding scene in game. Gear optimization, the Reaper enhancement system is a long grind, which you can get those Reaper enhancement points most efficiently at in-game. So a little bit of disagreement with Josh there. There is actually a pretty good in-game in DDO.
Well, when you reach the higher levels, you can choose to reincarnate, and you need a premium object to do this, and the system has various layers to it, but basically, you reset your character to a lower level, gain a few minor buffs every time you do this, but also suffer an experience gain penalty for every new life you have. And when you reincarnate...
And just to clarify, it's not an experience gain penalty for every new life. You actually... the amount of experience you need to get for each level does increase, but it increases on the second life and then increases again on your third life, but it never increases again after that. And that's only for heroic reincarnation, which is reincarnation going from level 20 to level 1. There's other levels of reincarnation in DDO. One's called epic reincarnation, where you go from level 30 back to level 20, and for that, your XP curve never increases. It's the same every time.
Interestingly, the Dungeons & Dragons online shop cannot be accessed directly from the website, but it also can't be accessed within the game client. Instead, you have to use the game client to launch the website which contains the shop, which is needlessly complex. The issue here is...
Okay, this has been updated, so you don't have to do that anymore. You can access the DDO store in-game, and there is a difference. There's a DDO store and the DDO marketplace. So the DDO store is the store in-game. That's the store where you spend DDO points, which are the points you earn as you just play the game through questing, or you can buy bunches of DDO points to spend in game. Now, the other place is the DDO market. That is where you have to go to your browser and go to. And the reason two different shops exist is because the DDO store, that's the one in game, that sells everything for DDO points. The DDO market sells everything for real money. So that's why they're different. One's real money, one's DDO points. So the reason also that they have two is they always release the expansions in the DDO market first. So they are exclusive to the DDO market for 6 months. And then after 6 months, they'll put them in the DDO store for points. But that's kind of a business thing, you know, take it or leave it. But obviously they do that because they want you to spend real points first rather than points you kind of earn in game.
I love how there is a ton of cosmetics, but I hate how you can't see how they look on an in-game model before buying them. I hate how there's experience.
Yeah, they need to fix that. You need to be able to, it's very important to be able to actually view cosmetics. But I will say a lot of the cosmetics in game, they have something called the Mirror of Glamoring, which is actually a very cheap item in store that lets you apply the cosmetic look of any armor or helm in game onto your character permanently. So cosmetics are extremely versatile, and even though you can't preview them, the store exclusive ones, which there are some DDO store exclusive ones, the main bulk of cosmetics used by players are through the Mirror of Glamoring, which previewing is not an issue because you can just equip the item you want to glamour and then copy that look onto whatever armor you want to actually use because it has better stats.
I hate how there's experience boosts in the shop, but I love how the game isn't about endgame, so these are kind of pointless. Now,
well, that's not true. So it is common. I mean, look, it's a free-to-play game, and there is a little bit of pay to go faster. You can buy experience potions in the store. However, you can also earn them in game. There's ways to get experience potions in game. Although the best ones are in the shop, you can still get them in game. And they also offer a variety of like XP boosts, as weekend bonuses, things like that. You can also get like guild ship buffs that give you extra experience. There's even an item called the Voice of the Master you can get from the Dolaris Tomb Pack that gives you a 5% bonus to all XP. So there are ways to get bonus XP without paying. And it actually is very relevant. You know, Josh said it wasn't relevant. It's actually very relevant because, again, I mean, reincarnation, as he went over in this video, is a big aspect of DDO. So XP pots, when people are continuously reincarnating to play the content over XP pots, let you get through the game faster, obviously.
Now, there's no ignoring it, the shop is expensive, but one saving grace of Standing Stone Games is they do give away a lot of stuff for free quite often. Now, about 2 weeks before I made this video, the code Dungeon Crawl was active. It's not active anymore. It gave people a ton of adventure packs, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to try it anyway. And it worked. So the new player guide link doesn't work, but the free stuff code lasts 2 weeks longer than you say it's going to.
Yeah, that was weird. They definitely let that code go longer than they said they would. I think they might have done that on purpose. I'm not sure. I'm just speculating here, but there's always a lot of drama about that code ending because it's such a big deal. So sometimes they will let it slide, at least they have in the past, and let it go a little bit longer than they announced it was going to go. But that is a free code that they have introduced many years ago. They initially during like 2020 I believe is when they first started that code, but they tend to release that once a year or so, not every year. They never say when they're going to do it, but every once in a while they'll release that code, and it's a big deal for new players. So if you're a new player getting to this game, you want to keep a lookout for that code because it gives you every adventure pack in the game for free. You don't get the expansions, but they give you every adventure pack in the game for free. So until that comes out, if you're a new player, maybe consider VIP instead, because that will give you access to everything rather than buying packs, or you can earn points in game to start buying packs, and then the code will to give you stuff you want in the meantime, and then that code will give you everything else whenever it does come out again. If it comes out again, it's not guaranteed.
Sometimes I guess they mess up in your favour. Randall tells us about spirit binding. When you die, you'll just return to your bound place. Then Cregan offers us a quest, but the game warns us we should finish Korthos Island first, and I appreciate this. One design choice I dislike in MMOs is when new high-level content is added to a low area, and a new player doesn't know that it's new content, accepts it, and gets whisked away to some disconnected high-level area. It's nice to see designers reminding players there is a suggested path, but not forcing you to take it.
Okay, so Keeping the Borderlands actually was a new kind of, it's not a starter area. Korthos, as he's showing right here on the screen, that is the default, and the game prompts you to stay and do Korthos first because Korthos has a built-in mechanics to help you teach the game. It's kind of the tutorial area. So Keeping the Borderlands, the other option there, that's also a level 1 quest pack, so you can go do that if you want and be totally fine. It's not necessarily a high-level area. Now, Keeping the Borderlands does have a level 2021-ish version, but there is also a level 1 version. So you can actually start in Keeping the Borderlands and be completely fine as a level 1 character.
We then get told that swords do slashing damage, which is good against fleshy stuff, and maces do crushing damage, which is good against crunchy stuff. So there's an element of attack style choice, and later I discover this does matter quite a lot because the bonuses are substantial. There's more stats and skills than I could ever even...
That's not really true. I mean, there is certain DR that you can bypass, for example, by having a bludgeoning type, but in DDO, in the past, it was a bigger deal than it is today. Today, DR bypass is not a huge deal. The game, when it comes to like building the top DPS, is kind of all about crit ranges and crit multipliers, and a lot more so than having specific types of weapons that bypass certain DR, especially there's a system in the game called the sentient weapon system, which really incentivizes you to focus on one weapon and make that really, really strong at endgame. But that's more of an endgame optimization thing. Certainly there can be sections of the game where it's good to be able to bypass certain DR. So like constructs, adamantine, for example, there's a lot of situations where it does help, but when it comes to weapon choice, slashing versus bludgeoning, not really a big choice in the game. It's kind of an outdated version of this tutorial, I would say. It doesn't really play a huge role to make sure you have like slashing for zombies or bludgeoning for skeletons.
I also discover you can hold shift to block with my shield. It's probably worth telling players you can do this, and while blocking, your move becomes a little jump forward or backwards or to the sides, and this will matter later when the projectiles start flying.
It's also worth noting that if you put one rank into the tumble skill, you, instead of doing that little jump animation, you do a actual tumble animation. It's like a rolling animation, which is just a smoother, faster animation. So there are a lot of good ways to avoid stuff and avoid damage in game, which he's going to get to here in a moment.
Protecting this crystal means wave defense, and I discover items have a durability bar, the blue bar at the bottom of their tooltip, and when an item breaks, you can fix it at any vendor. But every time you fix an item, there is a small chance it will be permanently damaged and reduce its overall durability. So you either need to fix it using items from the cash shop, which don't do this, or gather multiple of the same weapon.
Okay, so I need to add some context to that. Item durability damage is not irrelevant in DDO whatsoever. So you do suffer item damage to your weapons and armor and anything you're wearing. However, this can all be repaired at a vendor for very, very cheap. It's not a big deal. And when he talks about permanent durability damage, that's only for random generated loot. All the best loot in DDO for the most part is named loot, and named loot does not suffer permanent durability damage. So it's nothing you have to worry about at all. You don't have to go to the cash shop or anything like that to repair your weapons or to prevent them from being permanently damaged. And even weapons like random generated loot that is prone to being permanently damaged, you can actually, through crafting, get rid of that so that they no longer suffer permanent damage. So it's not a big deal at all in DDO. It's nothing you need to worry about or even deal with very often. And there's even certain enhancements where you don't take any damage to your weapons.
Our reward for the quest is a helmet, but designing helmets to fit the Dragonborn race is clearly too hard, so you don't get any graphical changes. Nice.
Okay, so it's worth noting, Dragonborn is one of the newer races. So with some of the newer races like Tiefling with their horns and Dragonborn, they had to make some sacrifices being a small dev studio. So the thing with not being able to wear the helmets, they would have had to redo the artwork for all the helmets in the entire game. With as massive a game as DDO is and as small of a team as they have, it really wasn't feasible for them from a manpower perspective. Maybe you still don't agree with that, but you know, at least you can kind of understand why they choose to do that. It's not like the older races, like if you play a human or dwarf or whatever, the older races, you're going to have no problems with that. There's also a lot of cosmetics you can still wear on these classes. It's just some things may not work, and the reason for that is small dev team.
Find Lars, defend him from Sahawagin. He agrees to help the village, so we return with news of his aid, and this gets me a cape. And in a cool touch, the cape is enchanted with the Shield of Faith spell, and you can use it once per day. But this doesn't mean actual real-time days. It's once every now and again. I never managed to figure out the exact time.
So the exact time is this. You get basically one use per quest, although that use does get reset and refilled if you rest at a rest shrine. And anytime you finish an adventure, when you finish out, it refills it.
The cloak into your hotbar and use it from there. I like armor having spells on it. Feels like you're constructing a magical mech suit. So far, for a game made in 2006, the graphics have really impressed me, especially this floating grass. I like to believe the grass is stubborn and has remained stationary and the island has slowly sunk. You know.
Also, it's worth noting that what he's playing right now, this is Squirthos, one of the oldest areas in the game. If you go to the newer areas, the newer expansions that have come out in the last few years, you'll see much more impressive graphics than the older content. So just be aware of that. The game can look very pretty, especially in the newer areas. So he's honestly, what he's looking at right now is like the uglier parts of the game in comparison to the newer stuff.
So we navigate through this massive ice cave and eventually find the dragon. Unfortunately, our old friend, the invisible wall, is back, so we can't jump over and start fighting it, which is a real shame. So instead, we push further into the cave and try and find the controlling force behind the Sahawagin aggression.
Okay, so it's worth noting, yes, they don't let you fight this dragon, Osir KX, in this first quest, Misery's Peak. However, later in the game, you can fight this dragon. It ties into a later storyline in a later adventure pack called Reaver's Reach.
All in all, this was a lovely little intro section with a nice, enjoyable story, and we're told a world of adventure awaits in Stormreach, so we set sail. Stormreach Harbour is pretty grand. There's even a druid entrance right at the start, and I think this is an adventure zone for later, so I'll come back here then. The harbour itself...
Yeah, he's right. It is an adventure pack for later. There's some other higher level adventures in there. There is, however, in there a level 3 adventure pack series you can play if you want, so it's not all high level.
I spent some time in the city doing quests and I learned 3 things. First, everyone in the city owns a warehouse. Secondly, every warehouse is infested with kobolds. And third, they've actually done a really good job of varying the quest mechanics. Even though they all use roughly the same map, this...
Yeah, and he's right. There's a lot of kobolds at the beginning of the game, but it quickly tapers off into other types of enemies.
One quest seems a bit harder, the captives. So I ask for help in general chat and I team up, and the adventure zone is large and the colour palette is lovely. However, the orc enemies are beyond me, so I die very fast. Now, if you're in a team and your partner can revive you, as in they have the skill and a revive kit, you'll just get up there. But my partner doesn't, so you now have 3 choices. Use a revival item from the cash shop, spend a spirit shard, which is a premium item to get up, or fail the dungeon and return to town. So I'll try this dungeon again later.
It's also worth noting there is an item in the game you can get called the Curse Blade of Jack Jibbers. That's minimum level 1 to use, so you can use it at any level, and that lets you self-raise. There's also other items in the game, or other enhancements in the game, like in Monk. If you have 5 levels of Monk, at least you can take Rise of the Phoenix, which lets you self-raise. So there's some other ways, to self-raise. Also, if you get a hireling that goes along with you, your hireling can raise you. A good tactic to do as a new player. Always have a hireling cleric or hireling favorite soul with you to heal you, and if you die, they can raise you, assuming they aren't dead themselves. You can also park your hireling, so keep your hireling, tell it to stay in one place. So you might want to have your hireling stay at the beginning of the dungeon, so that if you die, you can call it to you and have it raise you. So there's other ways to get around this. It's not like strictly either restart or buy a spirit cake from the shop.
The strength of these middle-class MMOs is often the player base tends to know that they're not world-dominating, so the long-term players stick around for fun. When your game is super massive worldwide successful, being the best tends to come with a certain level of respect and seniority and authority, but being the best in a game that only has 20 to 50,000 players doesn't carry as much social prowess, so they play it for fun. Long-term players know that new players need to be taught how to stick around, and so they're normally quite inviting. We hunt down a necromancer, solve an underwater lever puzzle.
And I just want to say that's completely true. DDO's community, I would say, is ridiculously inviting and helpful and friendly. It's also a very mature community. It's a much older player base than you might find in some other games.
I like how there are 3 runic buttons in this room, but I can't use any of them as my stats are too low. Another example of encouraging you to return with a team, because it's unlikely any one player would have the stats for all 3 buttons.
You actually don't have to click all 3 buttons in that quest, you just need one of them. But yeah, it's an example of, that's an example of a stat check. Usually this is not, very few exceptions do quests, and there are a couple, but very few exceptions do classes actually lock you. Like say, oh, you can't finish the quest if you don't have enough wisdom, for example. But most often they are in there as optionals to give you some access to an additional like room, or give you some extra XP or loot or something.
This chest is trapped, and the trap actually does substantial damage to me, which I love because it makes rogues even more relevant, and now I've got some better armor. But here's an annoying touch, another example of a small but noticeable...
And it's worth noting that there are, with a few exceptions, for the most part, the traps in DDO are very dangerous, but the quests are made so that you can get around the traps in the mass majority of the time. Now, there are certain quests where you have to have a trapper, but those are very, very few and far between. The vast majority of quests do not require a trapper. It's just nice to have one, because if you disable a certain number of traps, you get additional XP, and also you can just disable the trap, so it's easier to get through that area without having to like tap dance around a trap or go through an optional path that might be less convenient.
This dungeon is a challenge. It needs me to retrieve a gem while killing fewer than 6 kobold leaders, so I just run past them. But if you alert too many, you trigger a yellow alert, which makes enemies swarm you and just wreck me. So I'll need to find a rogue friend and come back for this. I double back to the druid.
So that quest is pretty notorious. He was running stealthy repossession there, one of the earlier quests in the harbor. A lot of players skip that quest. It is very stealth focused. It's tough to do without someone very stealthy. So it's worth just noting that that's an outlier. Very few quests in DDO emphasize stealth to that degree.
Unexpected underwater pipe spike trap keeps me on my toes, and then an interesting mechanic. Ooze enemies will break your weapons super quickly, unless your weapon is made of wood. Also, if you attack them with a slashing weapon, there's a chance they'll split into more oozes, which I did not know, so I accidentally create a...
Yeah, so there are a few enemies in the game, like oozes and rust monsters, where if you don't have a weapon that's of a type, say like crystal, for example, it will break your weapon very, very quickly. However, there's also other enhancements when you get later into the game. So like through the Divine Crusader Epic Destiny, Core 2 of that Destiny actually lets you, it disables any kind of, you no longer take durability damage on your weapon. So there's other ways to get around durability damage. So like have a crystal weapon or have a certain enhancement.
Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to all the supporters on...
Okay, so I think Josh's experience here as a new player is very typical. DDO is a game with a lot of bugs. A lot of that is a result of the small dev team, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I mean, it's known for its bugs. It's known for its lag. There are some lag issues. It's worth noting it is also a game from 2006, which, you know, not to excuse some of this, but that plus the small dev team, at least you can understand why some of these problems exist in DDO. But the bottom line with DDO is so many players like myself have stuck with it for so long, just because it's so unique in what it offers with its reincarnation system, its action combat system that plays a lot like a hack and slash game. You don't see that a lot in DDO, or a lot in other MMOs, I mean. So there's a lot of great traits. I mean, the character customization, you can really craft whatever D&D character you can imagine. The balance is quite good. There's a lot of interesting events in DDO. They have the Hardcore League now, which is a permadeath server that operates in seasons. So there's a lot to find and a lot to enjoy in DDO. while being a free-to-play game, it does actually offer a lot of free content, even if you don't get that free coupon code Josh was talking about. The game currently has 32 levels, and you legitimately can play through, I would say, at least 16 or 17 without really having to grind too much. There's a lot of free-to-play content in the game, which really doesn't start to taper off until you're about halfway through the game. And even then, by just playing the game, you earn a lot of free DDO points. So by the time you get halfway through the game, you're going to have some points to buy a couple packs. So you can legitimately get through the game as a free-to-play. I know players who have never paid 1 cent for DDO into the game, and they own almost everything in the game. So yeah, I mean, one person I raid with is a completely free-to-play player, and he owns all the content in the game except for, as far as I know, he owns all the content in the game except for the most recent expansion. So it is pretty nice with the free-to-play stuff it offers. Almost everything in the game is obtainable with time versus actually paying for it. A lot of the stuff, the most notorious stuff in the game, with, I would say, a couple exceptions. And I will say, as someone who's played DDO for a long time, I haven't spent overwhelming amounts of money on this game. You certainly can if you want to, and it's good that there are players that do that, who hopefully can comfortably afford it, because those are the types of players that keep the game going. So yeah, I just want to say, if you want to give DDO a shot, just don't be, it's not that pay to win. There's a lot of good content for free. It is a very good game that's existed since 2006. It has a very dedicated player base, a lot of resources for you to learn, even if probably the worst thing about being a new player in DDO is the overwhelming amount of knowledge you need. But there's a really good community out there. I know personally, if anyone has questions about DDO, hop into my stream. It's on my link tree below. Anytime, ask me any questions you want. If Josh happens to see this video, if he has any questions, he's more than welcome to go to my link tree and reach out to me directly, social media, Twitch, whatever. And I'm happy to talk to him about whatever questions he has about DDO. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video, guys. If you wouldn't mind, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video, and check out my stuff on my link tree below if you're interested in following me on Twitch or social media, any of that stuff. So guys, I will see you next time. Have a good one. Take care.